Imagine hearing a sound you don't recognize, a low, constant buzz in the sky that just shouldn't be there. Well, over the last few weeks, that sound has become a very real thing across Europe's eastern flank. It's the sound of a new kind of threat, one that's cheap, incredibly hard to spot, and it's changing the whole game when it comes to national security. And it really forces us to ask a pretty blunt question. Are Europe's skies even safe anymore? Because honestly, the evidence we're seeing suggests a new and really unsettling vulnerability is being exposed, almost on purpose. All right, let's just look at the timeline because it all came to a head in one incredibly tense week back in September. On the 9th and 10th, a Russian drone flies right into Poland, a NATO member, which of course triggers an alliance-wide response. Then, just 3 days later, boom, it happens again, this time over Romania, forcing them to scramble F-16s. And then you have this wave of what officials are calling systematic drone sightings that completely shut down 5 Danish airports, including the huge hub in Copenhagen. This wasn't just random. You can see it, right? This was a pattern. And the reaction was, as you'd expect, fast and very serious. The Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, she didn't mince words at all. She called the airport shutdowns a serious attack on our critical infrastructure. Now, that's not language you use for a minor inconvenience. That's the language you use for a major security threat. And get this, that drone over Romania, it wasn't a one-off. It wasn't even the second or third time. It was the 11th time a Russian drone had violated their airspace since the invasion of Ukraine began. These provocations have been getting more frequent and a lot more brazen. So with this threat growing, leaders are now fast-tracking this really bold new idea, Europe's drone wall. But let's be super clear about one thing. We're not talking about some giant concrete wall in the sky. It's way, way more sophisticated than that. The drone wall is basically this idea for a coordinated, high-tech shield stretching all along Europe's eastern border. The best way to think about it is like Israel's famous Iron Dome, but instead of taking down big rockets, this thing is being designed specifically to stop swarms of much smaller, cheaper, and way more numerous drones. Okay, so how would it actually work? Well, it really just boils down to a three-step dance. First, you have to detect the threat. You do that with a huge network of radars and advanced sensors. Then, once you've got a lock on it, the system has to track it, sharing that data across national borders in real time so everybody's seeing the exact same thing at the exact same time. And finally, you intercept it, either by jamming its signal electronically or, just taking it out of the sky. And this isn't just some pipe dream. The idea has some serious momentum. It was first pushed by the Baltic states, Estonia and Lithuania, which makes sense. They're right there on the front line. Now it's got the strong support of Poland and Finland. It has official backing from the EU, and NATO is treating this as a critical alliance-wide issue. So the consensus is definitely building, and it's building fast. So that covers the what. But the much bigger question is why, right? Why is all of this happening right now and with this kind of intensity? Well, the answer really gets into a very modern and very tricky type of conflict. It's a concept called hybrid warfare. Basically, it's a strategy that just completely blurs the lines between being at war and being at peace. You mix a little military intimidation, some cyber attacks, some covert stuff, and the goal isn't necessarily to conquer territory, but to create chaos, to sow doubt, and to test your opponent's defenses without actually doing something that would trigger an all-out war. And this is so crucial to understand. These drone flights are not accidents. They are not mistakes. Analysts are pretty much all in agreement that these are calibrated probes. Every single drone that crosses a border is basically asking a question. How fast can you react? How well do your different air forces talk to each other? And maybe most importantly, how much political will do you really have to push back? The German defense minister, Boris Pistorius, he really captured this weird, unsettling new reality perfectly. He said, "We are not at war, but we are no longer at complete peace either." Europe is stuck in this gray zone, this state of constant low-level confrontation where the threat just never really goes away. But as you can probably guess, building a defense shield for an entire continent is a monumental task. And while the plan is definitely grand, it is running into some very serious real-world problems. The hurdles are just immense, and they're coming from every direction. On the technical side, you have to somehow get dozens of different countries' systems to all talk to each other flawlessly. Financially, who pays for a multi-billion-euro project like this? And how do you split the bill fairly?
Politically, you've got to somehow align the airspace laws and the rules of engagement for 27 different countries. Good luck with that. And then there's the big one. Geopolitically, is building this giant shield a smart deterrent, or is it a dangerous escalation?
All of this, it's really pointing to a fundamental shift in how we even think about conflict. We are absolutely entering a new era of what's called asymmetric warfare, where the old defensive playbooks just don't really apply anymore. And at the absolute heart of this new era is a really simple but profound problem: a massive, totally unsustainable cost imbalance. It all just comes down to simple and, frankly, terrifying math. On one side, you have your defense, an interceptor missile that costs millions of dollars. On the other side, you have the threat, an attack drone that might be pieced together with commercial parts for just a few $1,000s. You can literally win every single battle, shoot down every drone, and still go broke and lose the war. And look, this isn't just some theory we're talking about. Top NATO officials are openly warning that this model is not sustainable. Period. It's a strategy that could completely drain the West's expensive stockpiles way, way faster than Russia can run out of cheap drones. And here's the kicker. The technology is not standing still for a second. The threat is getting cheaper, it's getting smarter, and it's getting easier for anyone to get their hands on. For example, innovators in Ukraine are now mass-producing these FPV drones that have advanced AI guidance for under $500 a pop. I mean, think about that. This tech is spreading like wildfire. So this drone wall is Europe's big, ambitious answer to all of this. But the challenge it's up against, it really gets to the very heart of modern security. Can a continent whose defense has been built on decades of treaties and alliances, can it adapt fast enough to fight a threat that's being built right now with just some code and propellers? That is the test that Europe is facing today.